Gerald and I were a resentful couple for 5 years, unable to defy the elders' decision. He married me, and after the wedding, he took his revenge, street racing, chasing women, splashed across entertainment gossip headlines, turning me into a laughingstock in our social circle. At the family banquet, he once again brought back a pretty, well-behaved little starlet, just like before, waiting to see me go hysterical, to see me break down. But this time, no, this time, I didn't go crazy again. I even praised his taste. Chapter 1. When I entered the Wu family estate. Gerald Wu was standing straight with his back to the door. In front of him, old Master Wu slammed his cane hard against the floor. Bastard. This is our family banquet, and you bring that thing from outside. Have you ever considered Dorothea? Camila, the one called that thing, reddened around the eyes. Gerald, maybe I should leave. Gerald Wu pulled her into his arms, his profile indifferent. Why leave? We'll be family soon anyway. Old Master Wu grew even angrier, lifting his cane as if to strike. I forced a smile and stepped forward to stop him. Grandpa, please calm down. Gerald paused, his gaze sweeping over me for a long while. He probably wasn't used to me being this calm. In the past, I would have flown into a hysterical rage until Camila was driven out. In the end, his eyes settled on my smile. He froze for a second, lips tightening. So the madam of the Wu family is magnanimous. The tone was dripping with sarcasm, but I didn't want to dwell on what he meant. I pretended I hadn't heard. Supporting the old man, I led him to the dining room. At the table, Gerald and Camila were openly intimate. They completely ignored the old man's dark expression. Whatever dish I reached for, Gerald would snatch it first and place it into the bowl of the girl beside him. Clack! Chopsticks slammed heavily onto the table. Gerald acted as if he hadn't noticed and kept going. Before the old man could erupt, I hurriedly stood up. Grandpa, Grandma should be awake by now. She's probably waiting for you in the backyard. After sending the furious old man away, I returned to my seat. The guests in the banquet hall were still there. As the eldest grandson's wife, I couldn't lose my composure. Gerald tilted his head and shot me a glance. He toyed with a lighter, saying nothing. Only the oppressive air around him seemed to drop several degrees. I didn't speak either. Camila blinked, looking at Gerald with a wronged expression. Sister Dorothea wouldn't mind me being here, would she? Don't worry about her. He didn't even lift his eyes. I curled my fingers tightly and glanced at Camila. This one is prettier than the previous ones. Gerald Wu swept his gaze over my face, his voice flat. Indeed, better looking than young Master Wu's grandmother. Camila smiled, hiding the smugness in her eyes. Sister Dorothea is a famous beauty in City A. I can't compare. Gerald said nothing and lit a cigarette. The smoke was choking. I picked up a bite of food, trying to suppress the discomfort in my throat. Just then, Camila pouted and said coquettishly, I left my underwear at the hotel just now. Gerald chuckled hoarsely. You little scatterbrain. The food went down, and my stomach twisted violently. I stood up, ignoring the change in their expressions, and rushed toward the restroom. Chapter 2. I stood there blankly, staring at my reflection in the mirror. That face, once full and rosy, was now sallow and worn. Indeed, it couldn't compare to a newly debuted young star anymore. While I was dazed, my phone rang. It was my close friend Helen, the most renowned surgeon in City A. Dorothea, why didn't you tell me? If I hadn't been on duty today and seen the medical record, would it have helped? I cut her off. It would only add to the sadness. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then her voice trembled. Your illness, have you told him? I nodded, then realized she couldn't see me. I answered softly. He thinks I'm just playing tricks again. Helen exploded in anger. I heard he brought someone to the family banquet again? After all these years. How long does he plan to torment you? And that incident back then. Her voice stopped abruptly. She seemed to realize she shouldn't bring it up again. I sniffed. Forget it, Helen. After hanging up, I stood there quietly for a while. I turned on the faucet, washed away the blood I had vomited, then turned and walked out. At the end of the corridor, Gerald was leaning against the wall, his flawless face half hidden in the shadows. I lowered my head to pass by, but my wrist was suddenly grabbed. Still going back? The banquet's been over for a while. I stopped, not looking at him. Sorry to trouble you. I'd been feeling so awful earlier that I really hadn't noticed the time. Those guests must have been entertained by Gerald afterward. I should thank him. After all, it was usually my job. He paused. You hid for that long, was it really that disgusting? I turned my head and saw him frowning impatiently. I was just unwell. I tried to pull free, but he tightened his grip. His tone was mocking, laced with faint anger. Mrs. Wu, pretending to be sick again? I was speechless. I'd said long ago that I was ill. He didn't believe me. What more could I say? So I joked lightly. Actually, I'm pregnant. A surprise. You know? Gerald fell silent instead. After a long moment, his expression turned cold. Is that fun? I remember it's been a long time since I fulfilled my marital duties with Mrs. Wu. He suddenly leaned in close, our breaths tangling, ticklish and intimate. Dorothea, no one's going to indulge you. A huge force shoved me back. I staggered several steps and hit the wall. By the time I steadied myself, he was already walking away, holding Camilla's hand, the one who had been waiting at the corridor's end for a long time. I stood there in a daze until the driver called out, "Madam, the car is ready. Are we going to the cemetery now? Should we wait for, sir?" The driver hesitated. Clearly, he'd seen Gerald leave with Camilla. I snapped back to my senses. No need. Let's go. Chapter 3. I had just finished visiting my parents at the cemetery when a piece of news popped up on my phone. Wu family's young heir gets into a fight on set for his beloved Camilla. Before I could read it carefully, a message from Gerald's mother followed. Come to the hospital immediately. I froze for a moment, then put my phone away and rushed into the car. On the way, Helen sent me a message. Your husband is at our hospital. His head was split open 18 stitches. Who is it this time? Another case of flying into a rage for a woman? I stared at that line of text, lost in thought. Gerald rarely acted on impulse. The last time he was bleeding like that was before we got married. The year I graduated at 18. Helen took me to a bar. I was stopped by a drunk man. Helen had stepped out to take a call, and I was alone. Almost something happened. Later, Gerald dragged over a liquor bottle and smashed it straight down on the man's head. His profile was cold and ruthless. The one I protect. You dare touch her? The man was too drunk to recognize the Wu family's young heir and even dared to fight back. That night, the hot-blooded young Gerald nearly tore the entire bar apart. Afterward, he was punished by old Master Wu with family discipline. I applied medicine to his back, staring at the shocking welts from the whip, tears streaming down my face. Gerald still smiled. Stop crying. Repay me with your body. Then, I was furious and jabbed down hard with the cotton swab in my hand. Ow. Ow. Miss. I was wrong. He bared his teeth in pain. All trace of his noble composure was gone. I stopped talking. Gerald fell quiet too. After a long while, he murmured softly, Dorothea, in this lifetime, I'll only protect you. Time passed. Everything changed. Now, at 28, the people Gerald wanted to protect changed again and again. In any case, it would never be Dorothea. Chapter 4. When I reached the hospital room door, Gerald's mother was already there, her expression stern. I walked over and greeted her politely. Mom. She responded with a smile, then slapped me hard across the face. So this is how you take care of your husband? My head snapped to the side. My cheek was cut open by her ring. There won't be a next time. With that, she left in a flurry, bodyguards in tow. Blood dripped down. I raised my hand to wipe it away, then turned and entered the room. Gerald was holding his phone up, video calling Camilla. She was crying. Don't be so impulsive in the future, okay? If something really happened to you, what would I do? You've already said that many times. Gerald sounded impatient, yet unusually restrained. All right. Stop crying. I know I was wrong. My steps faltered. I accidentally bumped into a chair, making a noise. I'm hanging up. Gerald glanced at me casually, leaning back against the bed, his voice lazy. You came so late. If something really had happened, all you'd be good for is collecting your husband's body. I didn't respond. I just stood there quietly, not moving. The mockery on his face faded a little, perhaps unused to my docility. He turned his head away and looked out the window. Indeed, ever since that incident, these past few years between us had been filled with shouting, crying, open hostility. Very rarely was there any peace. I studied him. That flawless face, no blind spots, even with bandages wrapped around his forehead. He was still handsome. I stepped closer, wanting to touch his forehead. My hand was slapped away instantly. Gerald lifted his eyes in irritation, then froze when his gaze landed on the bloodstain on my cheek. He reached out, touched it, and asked, "She hit you?" The she was naturally his mother. My chest ached. I forced a bitter smile. "Yes. Are you going to get revenge for me?" Meeting my watery eyes, he froze. In the past, if his mother so much as spoke harshly to me, Gerald would fly into a rage. Let alone lay a hand on me, he would have torn the Wu family mansion apart. And now? He lowered his head and sneered. "She didn't hit you hard enough. This bit of pain, how could it ever match mine?" Gerald's voice was laced with cruelty. I fell silent again. After a long time, I finally spoke. "How about we get a divorce?" Chapter 5. After Gerald was discharged from the hospital, he didn't come home. He didn't even return to the Wu family estate. Dorothea, how long are you and Gerald going to keep this up? Deal with it immediately. Gerald's mother called to reprimand me. I was watching the news. The headline video was still looping clips of Gerald and Camila, with the backing of the Wu family's young heir. Camila debuted at her peak. Just days ago, she had won Best Actress. The news now showed Gerald flying to Switzerland to accompany Camila to see the snow. The internet exploded. The Wu family's young heir really dotes on Camila. I heard the Wu family madam has been on bad terms with him for ages. Why won't she just divorce him? Exactly. Clinging to young Master Wu with a childhood engagement, 10,000 signatures begging for a divorce. Let him go and let him marry our Camila. Traveling thousands of miles, just to make a beauty smile. So he wasn't even in the country anymore. Gerald's mother wanted me to handle it. I lowered my gaze. I couldn't exactly chase him overseas. Besides, that day at the hospital, my suggestion hadn't been accepted either. After I said it, Gerald went completely still. He stared at me for a long time. Dorothea, there's no one more heartless than you. Perhaps in his anger, the gauze on his forehead split open, soaking with blood. I opened my mouth, wanting to say something, then thought better of it. The more said, the worse it would get. I had thought that suggesting a divorce would free him. "I'll call a doctor." He didn't respond. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. In the end, it was Camila's call, saying she was in danger. Gerald got up immediately and rushed out the door. Thinking of this, I stepped onto the balcony, bitterness filling my mouth. I can't do it anymore. After all these years, I was tired too. I didn't want to play along anymore. Besides, when had Gerald ever been willing to listen to me? I couldn't control him. I can't do it. Gerald's mother seemed stunned, her tone incredulous. After a long pause, her slightly trembling voice came through. "I've already lost Luna. Do you want me to drift farther and farther away from my last son too?" I said nothing. Gerald's mother grew agitated. "Dorothea, hasn't our family treated you well enough? You've been married 5 years. When have you ever truly cared about Gerald? Otherwise, would he have turned to drinking and women outside? You really are heartless." I pressed my lips together, listening as she scolded me. Lowering my eyes, I leaned against the railing and looked down. 34 floors, so high. The people below were tiny, just like my world ever since that day. It had been trapped in one small corner. No escape, no way to avoid it. Chapter 6. Luna Wu was Gerald's younger sister, the Wu family's precious jewel. She was 6 years younger than me. After my parents passed away, I went to live with the Wu family. So in a way, I watched Luna grow up. She was raised well, lively, radiant, pure. Any beautiful word used to describe her would not be an exaggeration. Gerald, when he was young, wasn't as steady as he is now. He liked to bicker with me. Luna would squeeze herself between us and gang up on Gerald, and she never forgot to tease him at the end. "Brother, If it weren't for the engagement, with how sharp-tongued you are, you'd never be able to win Dorothea's heart in your whole life. Who said I like her? Luna, you're so noisy. That one sentence made both 18-year-old Gerald and me blush to the ears. All that beauty came to an abrupt end during a trip. A group of young people gathered together, glasses clinking fiercely, music pounding. Everything should have felt carefree. I didn't join them because my period cramps were unbearable. Half asleep, Luna ran into my room. When she saw I was awake, she joked, "Dorothea." My brother and the others went to set off fireworks by the river. I'm taking this chance to rest for a bit. Finally, I can breathe. She climbed onto the bed and lay beside me, chattering away. She talked nonstop. As I listened, the medicine kicked in, and I fell asleep again. By the time I was awakened by choking smoke, the flames had already surrounded us. I hurriedly woke Luna. We rushed out several times but couldn't get through. Luna had been weak since childhood and was almost losing consciousness. In my desperation, I heard Gerald's voice, summoning every last bit of strength. I screamed his name. He seemed to hear it. I heard hurried footsteps. I dragged Luna along, shielding her from the burning heat as best I could. Inching toward the area closest to the door. Luna, wake up. Your brother is here. The fire grew fiercer. A beam crashed down, and I couldn't dodge it in time. I threw myself over Luna, protecting her, but as if sensing something, Luna suddenly woke up and pushed me away with all her strength. In an instant, we were separated. I was near the doorway. She was trapped in the sea of flames. My eyes were bloodshot. I rushed toward her without thinking. "Don't come over." Pinned under a fallen beam, she stared at me, unblinking. Every time I moved, she struggled toward the flames. "Dorothea, you have to live." Fire climbed up her pant leg. She had been pampered her whole life. Now she was trembling in fear, yet still biting her lip. "My brother, his heart is actually very fragile. Without you, he'll be so miserable." Brother will definitely praise Luna for saving Sister Dorothea. She finally broke down, crying from fear. "Sister-in-law, it's such a pity. I won't get to see you marry my brother." As if afraid I'd die with her, she suddenly crawled desperately, farther and farther away from me. My hand could no longer reach her. "Tell Mom and Brother, and Grandpa and Grandma, don't cry." The raging flames spread mercilessly over her body. Grief tore me apart. Blood surged in my head. I lost consciousness. When I woke up, Gerald was standing by the window. He hadn't even washed his face. Soot and ash streaked across it. There were burns on his wrist. They were from risking his life to save me. He stood half-turned, eyes so red they seemed to bleed, choking back sobs as if carrying unbearable pain. "Why didn't you protect her?" She was only 16. Tears slid from the corner of his eyes. I wanted to tell him I did save her, but the outcome was that I lived. Everything I said felt pale and powerless. I closed my eyes in exhaustion. My face drained of color. "I'm sorry." Gerald fell silent. Emotions churned violently in his eyes. Finally, he said, "Indeed, it's not your fault." Then he left. After that, the ones who took care of me until I recovered and was discharged were Helen and the Wu family's housekeepers. Later, we got married. That night, he didn't enter the bedroom. He stood outside the door. "You've been waiting for this moment for a long time, haven't you?" He smoked on the balcony all night. I didn't sleep either. After that, he began street racing, chasing women, and dominating entertainment headlines. "Luna, look, your brother still blames me after all." Chapter 7. I returned to the Wu family estate. I went to the backyard to see old Madame Wu. Under the sunlight, the elderly woman was leaning back in her wheelchair, wearing a hat, looking utterly at ease. When the little old lady saw me, she squinted and smiled. "Is that Luna?" Just like always, I broke into a big smile. "Yes, Grandma, I'm here." After Luna's accident, Grandma Wu suffered a huge blow. Now, her memory was no longer very clear. Sometimes, when she saw me, she would mistake me for Luna Wu. I chatted with Grandma Wu for a while. When she started to look tired, I called the auntie over to push her back to rest. Unexpectedly, she suddenly grabbed my hand. "Dorothea, Why haven't you and Gerald had a child yet? The little old lady was lucid again. She had recognized me. She smiled kindly. Your grandpa and I want to hold our great-grandchild. I froze for a moment. Just as I was about to speak, Gerald's casual voice sounded above my head. Grandma, I'll take Dorothea back tonight and make you a great-grandchild. He rested a hand on my shoulder. I stiffened uncomfortably, my face warming, and thought, when did he come back from abroad? The little old lady smiled even wider. You brat. No seriousness at all. Don't scare our Dorothea. How am I not serious? Carrying on the Wu family line, shouldn't that make you happy? Grandma? Gerald Wu smiled along. At this moment, standing in front of her, he seemed to have reverted to his former, unruly self. The little old lady burst out laughing, then suddenly pulled our hands together, overlapping them. You two clearly like each other. She paused. You're just far too awkward about it. Those words stunned both Gerald and me. We looked at each other, then quickly looked away. I noticed that even his ears seemed to redden. After saying that, the little old lady didn't care about our reactions. She shook her head and let the auntie push her away. The huge courtyard was left with just the two of us, silent and still. A breeze carried apricot leaves through the air. The gaze above my head was stubborn, heavy with pressure. The large hand on my shoulder still hadn't let go. After waiting a bit, I twisted my body, preparing to leave. His grip tightened instead, almost touching skin, feeling the clear outline of bone beneath. He froze. Why have you gotten so thin? I still twisted free, answering flatly, it's cold. I eat less. Gerald raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. His words weren't pleasant either. You're not Camila. Only actresses need to control their weight. Who are you controlling it for? I pressed my lips together, not wanting to respond, and snapped back. Are you really that idle? He fixed his gaze tightly on my face. After a long moment, he curled his lips. I am quite idle. I looked up at him, a little surprised. He was smiling a lot today. Seeing my expression, he let out another soft laugh. Then he directly dragged me out of the estate, shoved me into the car, and fastened my seat belt. I hadn't even settled into the seat yet. The car shot forward with a whoosh. Chapter 8. After getting out of the car, I took a look. It was the restaurant we used to frequent in the past. We went into the familiar private room, and all the dishes were already served. He picked food for me, piling it up until my bowl was heaped high. Then pushed it in front of me, meeting my puzzled gaze. Mrs. Wu, eat a bit more, he said. He tugged at the corner of his lips. Otherwise, with such a small frame, how will you have the strength to give birth to a child? Sure enough, not a single pleasant word ever came out of his mouth. I shot him an annoyed look, but still picked up my chopsticks and ate. We rarely shared such a calm atmosphere. I didn't want to ruin it. Unfortunately, my appetite was poor. After only a few bites, I put my chopsticks down. Gerald frowned tightly. Not eating anymore? I can't eat anymore. I shook my head. He studied me carefully. Your complexion doesn't seem very good. As he spoke, he leaned closer. I dodged away. I already told you. Before I could finish, he laughed. You're not going to say again that you're sick, are you? He abruptly leaned back, stretching his long legs and propping them on a chair. Seeing you like this, I almost believed it. That careless attitude stabbed right into me. Yes, I was just joking with you. My eyes grew moist. Gerald fell silent instead and didn't argue with me. In the wordless moment, Luna's voice flashed through my mind. Brother would be very sad without you. I stole a glance at the man in front of me. His expression was dark and unreadable. After hesitating for a while, I still decided to speak first. Maybe I should really have a proper talk with him. Actually, a ringing phone interrupted me. Gerald glanced at me and answered. What is it? Gerald, didn't you say you'd have dinner with me? I'm already at the restaurant. Why haven't you come yet? Camila's affected, petulant voice reached my ears. I tugged at the corner of my mouth in self-mockery. All right then. So the time for this meal was stolen, too. Gerald tapped the back of his phone with his fingers, clearly thinking about something. My stomach churned, and I instinctively pressed my hand against it. What's the rush? Wait. Even though he doted on Camila, his tone was still so casual and unruly. Camila clearly hadn't expected that response and threw a tantrum on the other end. Gerald didn't get angry. After a while, he said, "What a powder keg." I lifted my head and met his surprised gaze, then quickly lowered it again. My face heated up awkwardly. Just now, I hadn't reacted in time and thought he was laughing at me. In the past, I had been spoiled and temperamental, flying into a rage at the slightest thing. Gerald always teased me, calling me a powder keg. He would provoke me even more, making me so angry that I'd ignore him for days. In the end, he'd only brought it upon himself and would have to come begging for forgiveness. I almost misunderstood him. I wanted to smile to ease the awkwardness. Suddenly, a wave of bloating pain surged up my throat. I sprang to my feet and rushed toward the restroom in just a few strides. I vomited violently, retching until the world spun, throwing up all the dishes and meat I had just eaten. When I came out, I ran straight into Gerald's darkened face. With just one look, I knew he had misunderstood me again. But this time, before I could say anything, he turned away in anger and slammed the door as he left, leaving me alone. In this remote restaurant, when I stepped outside, it was pouring rain. I blinked my sore, stinging eyes, standing helplessly under the awning. Fortunately, we used to eat here often, and the owner still remembered me. He helped me find a car and had me sent back to the city. Chapter 9. The elderly doctor who had been treating me called again to persuade me. "Dorothea, why didn't you do the treatment I prescribed last time? And you missed the one before that too. My goodness. You've skipped so many sessions, you. Even if the chance of survival is very small, at least it can buy you more time, right?" The old doctor sighed heavily. "Do you really not want to live that badly?" I clutched my phone, not knowing how to respond, and could only answer hesitantly. "I'll go next time." Another long sigh came from the other end. All right. Remember to come." After hanging up, I went out to the balcony to water the plants. When I was done, I pulled out the number of the cemetery. I confirmed that the plot I had reserved for myself was still being held. That night, I slept very well. The next day, I went to the hospital. The old doctor had been urging me for a long time. He was an old friend of my parents from years ago. I couldn't bear to disappoint him. Seeing me show up, he was visibly delighted. "See? I told you, how could someone truly not want to live?" He personally accompanied me through the entire treatment. Before leaving, I even took the initiative to ask him to prescribe more medicine. He agreed immediately. He felt deeply gratified by my proactive attitude toward treatment. "Goodbye, Uncle Chin." It seemed he hadn't heard me call him that in a long time. His voice caught slightly. "Ah, you child. Ever since your parents' accident." He paused. "Let's not talk about that. Don't worry, I'll do my best to treat you." I carried a bag full of medicine, smiled, waved at him, and thanked him. Chapter 10. When I asked Helen out, she was very surprised. "You actually feel like going out? I'm always telling you to go outside more. It's good for your health." She found it strange that I'd suddenly changed my ways. But when I suggested going to the biggest amusement park in City A, her expression shifted slightly. Then she forced a smile. "All right, whatever you want to do, I'll go with you." Truth be told, there wasn't anything in particular I wanted to do anymore. This amusement park was a place my parents used to take me to all the time when I was little. Ever since they passed away, I had never gone back. No wonder Helen's expression had changed. For me to make a request like that, anyone would think I didn't want to live anymore. "Thank you, Helen." In the end, Helen adjusted her mood and went with me. I rode the carousel I used to love as a child, attracting strange looks from a group of kids. I didn't mind. I even eagerly went to ride something more thrilling, the pirate ship. When I got off, my face was completely pale. Helen's face had gone white too. "Dorothea, you really can't ride things this intense anymore." I felt a little disappointed, but still nodded. Deep down, I knew my body really couldn't take it anymore. "Then I'll sit for a while." I pointed at a bench not far away and was just about to walk over, when a sudden commotion broke out behind us. It was followed by screams and shouting. Helen pulled me aside, frowning. Did some big shot show up? Why is it so noisy? I looked up and froze. It was Gerald. He and Camila were surrounded by reporters and fans. Even with bodyguards blocking them, it was still hard for them to move forward, and the direction they were heading in happened to be ours. Gerald had his head slightly lowered, fiddling with something on his phone. Completely oblivious to everything around him, his entire body radiated an irritable, oppressive aura. I stared at him blankly for a moment. Just as I was about to look away, he lifted his head. His gaze cut through the crowd and landed straight on my face. He froze for a second. Then he took a step forward, as if about to come over. Because of his movement, many people around also turned to look. Suddenly, someone in the crowd shouted, "Is that Mrs. Wu?" "What Mrs. Wu?" "Just a pitiful woman who isn't loved. Only our Camila is qualified to be Mrs. Wu." "Exactly, look how miserable she is. Young Master Wu is here with Camila filming, and he won't even accompany her." "Yeah, please. Just let the Wu family's crown prince go already. Let everyone be free." All of a sudden, a balled-up tissue hit me. Right after that, several food wrappers were thrown at me. I was stunned. Gerald stopped in his tracks, his eyes instantly turning savage. "Who did that?" Seeing this, the bodyguards immediately turned back to grab someone, but there were too many people, they couldn't find the culprit. A warm stream rushed out of my nose. I raised my hand to cover it, but couldn't stop it. Blood seeped through my fingers and flowed straight down. When Gerald saw that, his face changed in panic. He was about to walk over when Camila stopped him. "Gerald, I think I twisted my ankle. It hurt so much." In the instant he turned his head back. I grabbed Helen's hand, turned around, and ran. Chapter 11. On a business trip. "I'll pick you up tomorrow to go back to the old house for dinner." When I received Gerald's message, I was a little stunned. It felt as if he was reporting his whereabouts to me. I read it once, then again, over and over. My thoughts circled in my heart. In the end, I still didn't reply. Ask him why he was reporting to me? It seemed meaningless now. I set my backpack down and took an old photo off the TV cabinet. In it was 8-year-old me, and my parents, still very young. A layer of dust had settled on the photo, making it look grimy. I looked around the living room, everything was gray with dust. That was normal. I hadn't been back to this house for a very long time. This place carried my entire childhood, and all the memories I had with my parents. I hugged the photo frame and weakly leaned into the corner of the wall. In a daze, I seemed to see Luna. She was wearing her school uniform, her hair tied in a high ponytail. 16-year-old her was so full of youth, yet she puffed out her cheeks, as if she were angry with me. "Sister-in-law, how could you abandon my brother?" "Sister-in-law, are you even listening to me?" Afraid of startling her, I replied softly, "I'm listening." "Then hurry up and go find my brother. Without you, he'll be really sad," Luna urged. I froze for a moment and took out my phone. I opened the chat window between Gerald and me. "Luna, what should I say to him?" Luna scratched her head anxiously. "Anything is fine. Sister-in-law, whatever you say will make my brother happy." "Is that really so?" I thought for a moment and was just about to type, when a piece of news popped up. Heir of the Wu family, Gerald, visits temple with rising star Camila to pray for blessings. Good news coming soon. I tapped it open. I stared at the photo. At that handsome side profile. So familiar. Wasn't that the same man who had just told me he was on a business trip? "Luna, it looks like your brother doesn't need me anymore." I tilted my head back, my gaze full of confusion. Luna leaned over to look and froze as well. "My brother, he wouldn't." She grew so anxious that tears fell. "Sister-in-law, he really, truly likes you. His study is full of your paintings, and all the crafts you made. He said since he was little that when he grew up, he'd only marry you." "Sister-in-law, have you forgotten?" I opened my mouth. After a long while, I said, "I haven't forgotten." Luna instantly broke into a smile through her tears. "That's right. Sister-in-law, hurry and go find my brother. You're supposed to grow old together." But I stared into the emptiness, then turned back helplessly. "I want to go home. My dad and mom are waiting for me ahead. I'm leaving now. Luna. Mom opened her arms toward me. Dad stood beside her, smiling gently. I lifted my foot. It had really been a long time since Mom last held me. The figures of my parents gradually faded, afraid they would leave me again. I lowered my head and ran desperately, faster and faster. I didn't stop to care about Luna. Crying behind me, a complete mess. Luna, don't cry anymore. I'm really going home now. Chapter 12. Gerald's POV. At the banquet, people kept coming over to toast me. I grew irritated and simply stepped out onto the terrace. I couldn't help thinking about what Dorothea might be doing. This morning, on a whim, I'd sent her a message, but she never replied. Even during the business negotiations, I couldn't stop checking my phone. Thinking of that, I took it out again and glanced at it. All right, she really hadn't replied. She must be genuinely angry. These past years, because of Luna's death, we had both changed a lot. She had grown much quieter, and I was filled with guilt. I didn't know how to be with her anymore. Before leaving yesterday, I went to see Grandma. The little old lady was usually quite muddle-headed. But at that moment, she was unexpectedly clear-headed. She held my hand and earnestly advised me. You and Dorothea, stop tormenting each other. Grandma truly feels sorry for you both. Tell me, you two used to be so close. How did it turn out like this? If Luna saw this, she'd be heartbroken too. Our Luna liked Dorothea, her sister-in-law, the most. I froze on the spot. They say outsiders see things most clearly. So all these years, had she and I really been tormenting each other all along? On the business trip, my thoughts were in complete chaos. In the end, I sent her that message. After getting off the plane and seeing the city, I suddenly remembered. Dorothea used to keep talking about coming here, to the most famous temple, to pray for a peace talisman. So I went. My assistant was shocked. President Wu, you have a meeting scheduled with Xingqi's CEO later. Did you forget? Postpone it by 3 hours. The assistant had no choice but to agree. Yes, President Wu. I didn't know why, but I suddenly felt the urge to go get a peace talisman immediately, to take it back and make her happy. Back in the private room, I sat down in a corner, thinking about whether I should call her. Someone suddenly sat beside me. I turned my head. It was Camila. She leaned close, her eyes red. Brother Gerald, why are you ignoring me? I specifically chased after you to find you. I pushed her away, my tone icy. Remember your place. She immediately burst into tears. Brother Gerald, don't you have even a little bit of feeling for me? Never did. Camila was the daughter of an old business partner. We happened to know each other. These years, Dorothea had always reacted indifferently to the things I did on purpose. I had been childish too. I asked Camila to help, just to act in a little play. And indeed, it did make Dorothea angry. But after hearing what Grandma said, I decided not to keep digging myself into a corner. Tonight, Camila had come with her father. I already warned you not to follow me again. I said, I'm a married man. She tried to say something else. I waved my hand, signaling my assistant to separate her from me. I stood up, ready to go back to my room, planning to contact Dorothea. This time, I'd listen to Grandma and take the initiative, go coax her a little, even though she brought up divorce that day. And it made me furious. But I'd also been sharp-tongued, said cruel things to her, and run away in a panic. We were even. I took out my phone and pulled up her number. Suddenly, the phone rang. Chapter 13. I answered it, a little surprised that this person would be calling me. As Dorothea's best friend, over the past few years she had always treated me badly. What is it? There was no response from the other end. I pressed again. Helen? Say something? Still, only silence. I felt irritation rising in my chest. Maybe she wanted to scold me, but couldn't figure out what to say. After all, she'd already scolded me for everything there was to scold. Every time I upset Dorothea, Helen would call and chew me out mercilessly. This time was probably the same. Just as I was about to hang up, she suddenly spoke, her voice heavy. Dorothea is dead. I froze for a long moment, then laughed. So this is her throwing a tantrum at me? How could that be possible? It was obviously fake. Just a few days ago, she'd been perfectly fine. Dorothea suddenly broke down. What tantrum, Gerald? Can't you understand human language? Dorothea is dead. She died from illness. She left in terrible pain. The huge sound slammed into my ears through the receiver. So loud it nearly made them ring. I staggered a few steps, my heartbeat inexplicably accelerating. How could that be? She was clearly still full of energy. She even argued with me, we even went out to eat together. I didn't even know what I was saying anymore, my words falling into chaos. When Helen angrily cut me off. You spend all day mixing with that celebrity, what do you even know? Dorothea was seriously ill. Every night she couldn't sleep. She was in so much pain she was nearly dying. What do you know? She told you. But what about you? You didn't believe her. Gerald! I could barely stand. My hands were trembling, and I could only press them down hard. I truly had never believed it. I thought she was deliberately playing tricks, trying to get my attention. Before, she'd been spoiled. Every time we argued, she'd pretend to be sick, and every time, I'd fall for it. But this time, I didn't want to indulge her. I wanted her to take the initiative and coax me instead. When did it happen? This morning, she paused, then cried even louder. When she left, she was at the old house, alone, all by herself. With a thud, my legs went weak and I dropped to my knees. My assistant, the bodyguards, and the people around rushed over in panic to help me up. Don't touch me! I shouted them away. I struggled to get up on my own, my whole body shaking. I fell several times, using all my strength before I finally stood up. I rushed out of the venue, got into the car, and sped toward the airport. My mind held only one thought. I need to go back and bring Dorothea home. Chapter 14. When I arrived, Dorothea was already lying in the hospital bed. Her eyes were closed, her eyelashes long and curled, as if she were merely asleep. I just stood there, staring blankly. It felt as though I had suddenly forgotten how to breathe. Otherwise, why would my chest feel so tight, so painfully tight? I stepped forward and gently pulled her into my arms. At this moment, she was especially obedient. If it were any other time, she would have already pushed me away, then looked at me with that silent, distant gaze, until I was the one who retreated. I used to hate her like that the most, but now, I wished for it desperately. I wished she would get up and hit me, scold me, instead of lying there, completely motionless. Tears suddenly slipped down, dripping onto her cold body. I held her even tighter, almost as if I wanted to melt her into myself. This was something I had always wanted to do whenever I was unhappy. As long as I held her, my whole heart would settle. But now, why didn't it work anymore? The tighter I held her, the more my heart hurt. In the end, I couldn't hold it back anymore and broke down crying. Dorothea, I'm back. Why didn't you wait for me? I've already thought it through. What happened to Luna had nothing to do with you. Back then, my entire world was only you. All I could think about was saving you. It was my fault. I was the one who forgot my young sister, and yet I pushed the responsibility away, making you bear it all. Damn it, Gerald. You're really not human. You truly deserve to die. Chapter 15. I personally handled all of Dorothea's funeral arrangements and didn't allow anyone else to touch them. During the process, I also discovered that she had booked a plot in the cemetery in advance. When I learned that, all the color drained from my face. So she had been prepared to die that early on, and yet I had been immersed in my own world. Indifferent, completely unaware. I had nowhere to vent it, so I smashed my fist into the glass, blood splattering everywhere. The housemaid screamed and tried to call a doctor for me. I refused. This much pain, how could it ever compare to hers? In the end, I still buried her in the cemetery she had chosen. I even communicated with the cemetery, had the location adjusted so that her gravestone would be right beside her parents. I thought this was the last thing I could do for her. She would want this too, wouldn't she? I stayed at the cemetery for the entire day. Camila came to look for me, wanting to talk. What could there possibly be for me to talk about with her? From beginning to end, there had never been anything between her and me that wronged Dorothea. I had the butler drive her away. I didn't expect that the very next day, the entire internet would be spreading news that Camila and I were about to have good news together. When my secretary forwarded me the articles, I was reading the comments. I heard Gerald's wife died. Guess he'll be marrying that rising star Camila soon? Lovers finally becoming a couple. I said it ages ago. His ex-wife was just occupying the spot. President Wu dotes on Camila so much, such a cold-faced man. Yet he was childishly playful. Even took her to an amusement park. My gaze froze. I remembered that day at the amusement park. I had received a call from the butler, saying Dorothea had gone there, the place our two families used to visit together when we were kids. A moment of pity overtook me. My mind short-circuited, and I pushed aside a business deal worth hundreds of millions, speeding straight over. I wanted to know why she had gone to the amusement park. Instead, I ran into Camila at the entrance. She said she was delivering an urgent document from her father to me. I took it and was about to send her away, when a swarm of media rushed in, and the situation spiraled out of control. I never expected that Dorothea would witness that scene firsthand. At the time, I felt awkward and afraid she'd think I had secretly followed her there, so I pretended not to care. If only I had known that day was the most painful moment of her life, I would never have fled in the heat of the moment. Coming back to my senses, my anger only intensified. It didn't take long to find out. This had been Camila's doing. Within days, she was completely blacklisted. My wife. No one is allowed to humiliate her. Chapter 16. I went back to the old residence. The little old lady was, as usual, basking in the sun in the courtyard. When she saw me, she immediately narrowed her eyes and smiled. So, did you listen to this old woman and coax Dorothea back? My fingers trembled slightly, and I didn't answer. The little old lady thought I was just shy and laughed even more cheerfully. Oh my, not saying anything now? You child, can't even take a little teasing? Hearing the noise, the old man strolled over from not far away, shaking his head. He said, "Old lady, Dorothea." My heart jolted, and I immediately cut him off. Grandma, the method you taught me was very good. The confusion on the little old lady's face instantly vanished. She patted my hand and sighed again and again. Good, good, good. You young couple have reconciled. Now Grandma can rest easy. Gerald, from now on you mustn't mess around anymore. You have to treat Dorothea well. She carefully reminded me, enduring the pain in my chest. I responded. The little old lady's spirits weren't very good anymore. The matter of handling Dorothea's funeral had been kept from her. We were afraid she wouldn't be able to take the shock, so the little old lady still believed that her Dorothea was doing just fine. I gave the old man a look. He understood, sighed, and coaxed the little old lady back to her room to rest. After they went far away, I also turned around and went to the neighboring courtyard. That was where my mother lived. The two villas were connected. When I found her, she was in a small room, tending to a Buddha statue. She only glanced at me, then continued wiping it on her own. We stood facing each other in silence. After a long while, when she finished what she was doing, she spoke softly. "You're done talking with your grandmother?" I coaxed her back to rest. And Dorothea, everything on her side has been taken care of as well, right? I looked toward the windowsill, at the potholes that had been meticulously tended, and hummed in response. A strange emotion surged in my heart. My mother didn't ask any further questions. Instead, she knelt before the Buddha statue, her expression devout. I stared at her blankly. It felt as though something inside me was hollowed out. My mother was a devout Buddhist. Every week, she would set aside time to kneel and pray in the alley for several hours, praying for peace for everyone in the family. For the past several years, Dorothea had always accompanied her, never missing once. She always said that her wish was for everyone in the Wu family to be safe and healthy. I stood there watching for a long while more. Then I lifted my foot and walked over, kneeling down with her. My mother turned her head to look at me, but didn't say anything. I bent forward, staying bowed for a long time without rising. Tears quietly fell, soaking into the prayer cushion, and disappearing without a trace. Chapter 17. My friends invited me to the annual cruise vacation at sea, and I agreed. In previous years, I would always attend this gathering. Dorothea loved the ocean. These past few years, it was only at this time that she would be willing to appear as my date and attend with me. On the day we boarded the cruise ship, the sky was dark and overcast. Perhaps even the heavens were grieving for me, grieving that there was one less person by my side. At the banquet, I declined many invitations to dance. I walked alone to the railing. The salty, damp sea breeze brushed past my ears, light and gentle, just like Dorothea's voice, soft and sweet, carrying the tender lilt of her ancestral hometown and upper city, stirring the heart. Suddenly, my mind replayed the day the little old lady urged us to have a child. Those words had made her blush all over. She was truly adorable. What are you thinking about? Dorothea leaned against the railing beside me, tilting her head as she asked. Without thinking, I replied, I'm thinking about you. After saying it, I felt a little timid, afraid she would dislike such bluntness. I didn't quite dare to look at her, but she smiled. The sea wind was strong, scattering her hair, yet it couldn't hide those bright, clear eyes. I just stared at her, entranced. Suddenly, her figure began to fade, leaping into the sea, gradually disappearing. I panicked. Dorothea, take me with you. I reached out to hold her, but my body suddenly lost control and rushed past the deck. As I fell from the cruise ship, my heart felt strangely lighter, as if all the gloom had dissipated. She loved the sea, then I would forever chase the ocean. Chapter 18. The next day, the television in the Wu family's old residence replayed the news on a loop. Wu family heir Gerald Wu fell into the sea from the Victoria cruise ship last night. No body was recovered.